This video isn't really about mowers. It's about a trap a lot of guys fall into when they get into lawn care. They think the better the setup, the better the business. They think, if I just get a better mower, a bigger trailer, a nicer truck, or more equipment, then I'll finally make more money. But these aren't minor payments, these are major investments. For example, this Ferris 62-inch zero-turn mower costs around $17,000. The weed whipper is around $300 to $400. The edger is around $400 to $600. The blower can range from $400 to $700. And a new truck can be upwards of $80,000. So when people want to get the best stuff right from the start, they rarely consider the debt that can pile up. And that debt should only be taken on if your pricing and client base can sustain it. You need the clients first, and you need the certainty that you'll be able to maintain the income for as long as you have the debt. So buying more or better equipment doesn't always result in more profits. In fact, it rarely correlates. Producing the results that keep your clients happy is far more important, and the best setup for the job isn't the biggest. It's the setup, your route, your pricing, and your customers can actually support. Because equipment matters, but equipment isn't the business. That's where a lot of people get confused. They think if they buy the truck, the trailer, the racks, the big mower, and all the nice equipment, then they've got a real lawn business. But in reality, they may have just bought themselves a bunch of stuff they now have to pay for. The business starts when the work, the pricing, and the equipment all match. So if a guy is starting out with a basic mower, a string trimmer, and a blower, that doesn't mean he can't start. It just means he's got to be smart about the kind of work he takes. With that kind of setup, you shouldn't be chasing huge properties or trying to take on 5-acre lawns, and you shouldn't be driving 30 minutes across town to cut one small yard for a low price either, because that's how you burn yourself out before the business even gets going. I know this because I was once doing this. I'm not speaking from ego, I'm speaking for experience. This is why so many businesses fail within the first few years. One of the biggest reasons for entrepreneurs failing in nearly any industry is burnout. But this is especially true for us guys in labor. It's physically demanding. So a small setup works best on small, simple lawns that are close together, and for guys just starting out, still building their client base. The mistake is rarely the equipment you're using, it's the mindset you have. If you've got a basic setup, you can still start building a business that serves you, and equally, you can get the best equipment and never make the money back you spent on it. No matter what you're working with, you've still got to price right, show up, complete the work to the standards your clients expect, and understand the value of your time. If a job takes you longer because you're using smaller equipment, then that has to be built into the decision. I also think it's important to note here that using a push mower or even a walk behind like the one I'm using in this video can be physically exhausting, especially if you're doing 15 to 20 lawns a day, and even more so when you're working on lawns as large as this one. Some of you younger guys may feel like you can do it, and it's not a bad place to start, but if you're looking long-term, you need to keep in mind your physical health just as much as your mental and financial health. That's why you can't just look at the mower and think you figured out the business. You've got to look at the whole day, like how far you're going to be driving between properties, how long does it take you to unload and get started each time, and how long each lawn is actually going to take with the equipment you've got, including trimming and blowing. And when you put all that together, is the job still worth doing? When you're just starting out, saying yes to any and every job is going to be very tempting, but I'd say if you want to know the most important deciding factor, in my opinion, it's route density. Keeping your route tight keeps your profits up. If you're driving for less distance between properties, you're saving time, allowing you to complete more jobs per day, and you're saving money on gas. Plus, thinking long-term again, you're causing less wear and tear on your truck. Route density is crucial and much easier to maintain if you start right. That's the kind of thinking that leads to growth and success, and it doesn't matter whether you've got a quote-unquote professional setup or a starter setup. If you're an owner, you need an owner's mindset. So if you're starting small, don't feel bad about it. Just don't pretend you're bigger than you are. Take the work your equipment can handle, do it well, and build from there. Once you start getting more lawns, the question changes. At that point, it's not about looking more professional. It's about figuring out what's actually slowing you down and deciding whether you can afford to take on the debt of a new machine or vehicle or whatever it may be. Because that's a cost you'll be paying for at least 3 years, maybe 5, and that will be eating into your profits. So you have to know whether you can afford that debt and still cover your business and personal costs with your profit. That's the most important thing to keep in mind, and I can't stress it enough. Profit is what equals growth, not more jobs. More jobs can just result in more costs, more burnout, and less personal time, whereas profit can always be used to grow. You can use profits to buy new equipment, repair old or damaged equipment, hire helping hands, or any other way you can put it back into the business. So, having more work doesn't equal growth if you're not making enough profit on those jobs. If you want to know whether it's the right time to start upgrading equipment, just ask yourself, will it help me get more work done in a day? Will it save time? Will it protect my equipment or further its lifespan? Will it let me carry what I need without making every stop a hassle? That's when a better mower, a small trailer, or a new truck might start making sense. Not because it looks better, and not because every lawn care guy online has one, but because it will help you to increase your profits, instead of throwing away your chance for profits from the start. If the answer is yes, then it might be a good upgrade. But I want to remind you, if you're not set up to take on these big investments, you're not buying efficiency, you're just buying debt. I see this all the time. Guys come into the industry thinking they can make a lot of money easily, and so they invest big with the idea they'll make it back fast. But then when the business starts to fail and they can't keep up with the cost, they'll leave the industry worse off than they started, having to deal with the debt for years after they stopped. In other words, the work should create the need, and then the upgrade should solve the problem. That's the healthy way to grow. When you're just starting out, you should use the equipment you can afford until you have the client base to invest in better. And don't feel like you're behind. I still today see a bunch of different setups while out on my routes. You can still use a more affordable setup, knowing that it might take a little longer to complete jobs if you have a smaller mower, less power in the trimmer or edger, or maybe less power in the blower. But you're starting out, that's how it works. And you'd rather stay strong for a long time, setting yourself up for success, than blowing all your cash at the start before you even know there's a market for it. It's about using the setup that keeps money in your pocket and eventually makes you money. Once you've got a more substantial route going, the truck and trailer setup starts to make more sense. That doesn't mean get the latest Range Rover. Any SUV can pull a small trailer on the back. At that point, you should be moving up from a few lawns a day to getting through full days, so it makes sense that you would want to upgrade your equipment and need to carry a mower, trimmers, blowers, fuel, spare line, tools, blades, and whatever else keeps the day moving. But every machine has to earn its place. That's how I look at equipment. It's not about owning more stuff. It's about removing friction from the work. The work tells you what equipment makes sense. As the business grows, backup equipment starts to matter too. In the beginning, you're just trying to get enough tools to do the job. Later on, you're trying to make sure one broken machine doesn't wreck the whole schedule. Because equipment breaks, that's inevitable and part of the trade, no matter what level you're at. But when you've got a full route and employees standing around, that's expensive. So over time, the setup changes, and that might mean spare blades, an extra set of basic tools in the truck, or even backup mowers when you get to that level. That's the difference between starting and operating. At the beginning, the goal is to get moving and to get a client base built. As you grow, the goal is to stay moving. And once you have a crew, the goal is to keep everybody productive. That's why a bigger company needs a different setup than a solo guy. It's not because they're better or more legitimate. They just have different problems to solve. A solo guy may only need a simple mower, a trimmer, a blower, and a tight route. A growing operator may need a trailer, stronger equipment, and better organization. A full crew may need backup machines, extra handhelds, and enough tools to keep the day from falling apart. None of those stages are wrong. They're just different. The wrong move is copying a setup that doesn't fit your business. That's what gets people in trouble. They see somebody on the road or working in their neighborhood and think that's what they need. They see the big enclosed trailer and 3 trailers and assume success. But they don't see the payments, the repair bills, the insurance, the fuel, or the pressure of needing enough work every week to keep that whole setup paid for. So don't build your business around what looks good. Build it around what works. If you're starting with basic tools, then start with the basics in business. Show up on time, deliver a quality service, be consistent, charge enough, and keep your jobs close together. Then, when the work grows, upgrade the thing that's actually holding you back. Whatever it is, make the decision from the numbers, not from emotion. Because this business will take as much money as you throw at it. There's always another tool you could buy. There's always a bigger mower. There's always another piece of equipment that looks like it would make life easier. But before you spend the money, ask the real question. Will this help me make more money, save real time, improve reliability, or do better work? This is the biggest one. Will this help me make more money? Or more importantly, is buying this equipment going to reduce my profit? Do I have $17,000 to buy that mower, and if I go into debt to buy it, how much is that machine going to cost me over time? You have to think long term because debt is long term. You might buy the new mower in season while everything's looking great, but you need to remember you'll still be paying for that equipment in the off season between November and April. That could be anywhere between $300 and $500 a month while little to no money is coming in. So are you making enough to pay that over the full 3 to 5 years without it affecting your profit? Are you making enough to cover your costs, business and personal, over the period you're paying off the piece of equipment? That's the main thing I want people to understand. You don't have to start big. You don't have to have the perfect setup, but you do need to think like a business owner from the beginning. Match the equipment to the work, make sure the work fits the route, and price it so the numbers actually make sense. That's how you grow without burying yourself in equipment costs. Start with what gets you paid, grow when the work justifies it, and don't let equipment make you look successful while the numbers are telling a different story. Good luck out there.